Well, if it isn't Tamagotchi, her new favorite pet.
Yes!
So what's that make?
This small thing is the only toy that guarantees to traumatize your childhood. Yeah, a Tamagotchi. So, the Tamagotchi was this early type of virtual pet, and I'm pretty sure it paved the way for stuff like Pokemon Go later on. It was like having a real pet, just without the cuddles and face licks. But every kid in the 90s, including me, was dying to have one. We all wanted to feed it, clean up after it, and then totally lose it when the thing up and died on us. And yeah, death was actually an inevitable part of the early Tamagotchi, a very harsh thing for us back then. For anyone who grew up in the 90s, you'd probably know exactly what I'm talking about. But hang on, because I'm about to share some stuff that'll totally blow your mind. Get ready to be haunted by all the nostalgia of Tamagotchis. And if you weren't around then, prepare for a wild ride. You won't believe how this funny little toy became a huge deal before everyone was online. Stick around. What's coming next will make you eager to hear more. The birth of Tamagotchi. The story of Tamagotchi started with a eureka moment. Akihiro Yokoi, the brain behind it, once told the New York Times about seeing an ad featuring a kid who couldn't take his pet turtle on vacation. As an owner of a dog, 3 cats, 2 parrots, and several beetles and other insects, Yokoi totally felt for the kid. He thought if it wasn't always possible to take living pets along, why not bring a virtual one? The concept of handheld games wasn't exactly new at that time. Back in '77, the Atari 2600 was all the rage. Then, fast forward to '89, a few years before the Tamagotchi hit the scene, everyone was buzzing about Nintendo's Game Boy. But here's the thing, those gadgets were pretty pricey. A Game Boy would cost about $90, which is over $200 today with inflation and all. That's where Yokoi stepped in with a game changer. He wanted to make something fun like those games, but way more affordable, so anyone could get their hands on one. That's how the whole Tamagotchi idea came to life. With its simple black and white screen, a small battery, and just a couple of basic buttons. And the best part? You could get a Tamagotchi for around $16 to $17, which was a steal compared to other gaming gadgets back then. But having just a rough idea wasn't going to cut it, not for launching in Japan, and definitely not for making waves worldwide. Yokoi was aware he needed a heavy hitter on his side, and so he made a pivotal decision, one that would open the golden age of virtual pets. Tamagotchi comes to life. First, a little background. Back then, Yokoi was president of Wisco Limited, a small creative firm that specialized in designing toy ideas and pitching them to the big guns. So, with Tamagotchi, Yokoi also knew that he needed the muscle of a big company to get his idea off the ground, and he reached out to Aki Maeda from Bandai's marketing department. The duo teamed up quickly and then brought the Tamagotchi concept to Bandai's execs. It wasn't an easy sell though. They had to conduct some surveys with high school girls and use the positive feedback to finally win over the board. Having worked with Japanese clients myself, I totally get the vibe. Decisions can take forever, with endless meetings that test your patience, but I also understand that it's all part of the process. Every new idea has to go through these hoops before it can really take off. And actually, the survey thing also played an important part later on, but more on that in the next part of the video. Teaming up with Maeda and Bandai really changed the Tamagotchi left and right, not just in terms of money and marketing, but also the very essence of its design. Have you ever wondered where the name Tamagotchi comes from? Originally, Yokoi had this idea of making the toy a wearable wristwatch and called it Tamagotchi, blending Tamago and Uochi, which translates loosely to egg watch. Then, he decided to go with the keychain design instead, which is what most of us remember. And that iconic blobby character we all know, it was actually sketched out on the spot by a designer during one memorable meeting. So, in the years 1996 and 1997, the world saw the birth of the first 2 Tamagotchi versions, and they were pretty much twins. Gen 1 has a checkerboard pattern, while Gen 2 has a ripple pattern. Now, because the first 2 generations of Tamagotchi are so similar, people often call them the Tamagotchi originals. Simple as they were, these little gadgets took off like wildfire. Bandai sold 400,000 units in 1996, increasing to 10 million in July 1997 and 13 million in October 1997. By spring 1998, nearly 40 million units had been sold worldwide, including 20 million in Japan and nearly 20 million abroad. Why did such a simple game take the world by storm? I know some people might think it was all thanks thanks to Bandai's clout in Japan, others say people just love the idea of having pets. But get this, despite Bandai's rep as a toy giant in Japan, they were actually having a tough time breaking into the American scene. So what made Tamagotchi a hit all over the world? I think the real secret sauce is something not many people talk about: the haunting fear of losing a beloved pet. Why was it successful? The truth is, looking after a pet is super addictive, especially when you know it could die if you don't check on it for a few hours. My first Tamagotchi was this frog in a green shell. Overfeed it and it poops everywhere. Ignore the mess and it gets sick and then dies. Too many treats? Dead. Unhappy? It turns into this ugly thing and yup, dies. I was so hooked on keeping mine alive that I clipped it to my backpack and took it everywhere. To the dentist, to school, to the play yard. The annoying part is it would beep like crazy, especially at night. I lost so much sleep until I figured out the trick to silence it. Just press those left and right buttons together and problem solved. But despite all my efforts, it still died. I remember it so clearly. I was at school, chatting with a friend during the break, and it just died. My friend and we just broke down right there in the middle of class. That was the moment I really got what it feels like to lose a pet you care about. I couldn't bring myself to hit reset. I just left it, keeping that last image of my Tamagotchi on the screen until the battery finally gave out. It wasn't just me. A lot of kids felt that way. We all wanted to look after our Tamagotchis non-stop, trying to keep them alive as long as we could. It got so intense that a bunch of my friends actually got banned from playing with their Tamagotchis by their parents because they were way too hooked. I've heard there are actually Tamagotchi cemeteries out there where people lay their digital pets to rest, and I totally get that. To be honest, I was quite upset when making this video, thinking about my dead green frog, but then I found this comment on YouTube that cracked me up. In either 07 or 08, when I got my first Tamagotchi, it died on me while I was at a doctor's appointment. When I asked my mom if Tamagotchi go to heaven, she panicked and told me they go into the power lines and live with electric Jesus. Oh man. Good times. The second big win for Tamagotchi was its clever marketing strategy. Remember that survey with high school girls they did early on? Turns out those girls were their golden ticket. Maita later told the New York Times that they actually had a tough time convincing toy stores to stock Tamagotchi at first. But when they showed it to groups of Japanese teen girls who were like the trendsetters of the nation, they totally loved it. The craze was so intense that people in Japan started camping outside toy stores or dropping serious cash in the resale market just to snag a Tamagotchi. Then, in March 97, Bandai dropped a bombshell. Own 1,000 of their shares and get a Tamagotchi for free. The next day, their stock price soared by 60 yen. The third secret to that little toy's massive success? Bandai's genius product strategy. They kept Tamagotchi fresh with a ton of different versions and twists. You had Tamagotchis themed around everything, from Mothra to Santa to mermaids, and then there were the ones with totally new gameplay, like the Matmasuchi and Atsuchi pair. One was designed as female, the other male, and you could link them up. They even brought Tamagotchi to the Game Boy. It's pretty much just virtual pets with some extra games and features. To be honest, I hate that game. But the real game changer for Tamagotchi, especially when facing off against late 90s newcomers like Pokemon, was its spin-off, Digimon. Digimon shifted gears from Tamagotchi's traditional teen girl audience to target boys, swapping out the cute and cuddly vibe for something more rugged and action-packed. And the cool part? You could link up with your friends' Digimon and battle against one another. Digimon might not have been as huge as Tamagotchi, but it still did really well. There are a bunch of Digimon TV shows where the characters have these Digivice gadgets, kind of like the original V-Pet toys, and then there's a ton of movies, video games, comics, card games, and all sorts of Digimon stuff you can get. So what happened to Tamagotchi when Digimon was taking off? Well, they kept things interesting by rolling out new versions with cool features. In 2004, they launched Tamagotchi Connection, adding over 50 new characters. And of course, taking a leaf out of Digimon's book, they made Tamagotchis connect and hang out with each other. They even introduced relationships, where your Tamagotchi could get closer to others, get married, and even have careers and education. They added more games, introduced Gochi points as a currency for buying stuff, and some versions even connected to Tamatown, an online world with even more to do. Plus, they came out with themed versions like Music Star and Tamagotchi Mini, focusing on making it easier to keep your Tamagotchi alive and well. In 2018, Tamagotchi Forever for iOS and Android was released. Cool idea, but it kind of just blends in with all the other games out there. It's like a lot of stuff from our childhood. We rediscover it, get all nostalgic, play around with it for a bit, and then it's back to gathering dust. Same with Tamagotchi. I see them making a comeback every 5 to 10 years or so, giving us a quick trip down memory lane and then we're over it. Unless you're really into collecting or looking for some cash. If you're lucky enough to snag a rare one, like the Yasashi Blue or Tamagotchi Ocean, you could be looking at $300 to $450 on eBay.